Welcome everybody to our webinar series here with the Georgia PGA. We're excited to have Stan Awtrey with us. Stan has been covering sports since a year after I was born, 1976. That's a long time. But Stan's worked with the AJC since then, since '76, all the way up through, I guess you're still kind of working for him now a little bit, aren't you? So maybe not full time, but he's still riding with them. He's covered all sports, but I think his passion has been golf forever, and he's been a great friend to the Georgia PGA, great friend to just golf in general in the state of Georgia. So Stan, thank you for jumping on. He's kind of worked into a new career with his daughter Kate, who is a fantastic photographer, and they created the Awtrey Media Group. And I think the reason we got excited about doing this, we've been talking with Stan about doing this for a couple months now, is really how he can help facilities and get in tune with the media, and how the media can then help your facilities and you as a PGA professional at your facility. So he's got some great tips and thoughts, and so we're going to turn it over to Stan. And as Michael mentioned, just a couple of housekeeping things. If you would, please mute your microphone if you haven't already, and then we'll have some question and answer periods at the end. But Stan, we'll turn it over to you and let you get going.
All right. Well, thanks, Gordo, and thanks for Michael for manning the controls today and making sure the ship sails in the right direction. So, and you guys know how much I admire and appreciate the Georgia PGA. And like I said, we've had a great relationship for a long time, and I think it's a first-class group. And I think the PGA professionals, especially the one in the Georgia, are just the best. So with that in mind, I put this little presentation together. I hope it will help your members and the clubs they represent, because it's often overlooked, the aspect of dealing with the media, and I think that's an important thing to learn and know more about, because once you learn to work with the media, it can be beneficial to you as well as to the media. It helps both sides. And you see in this cover slide, there's I think that's Phil talking to a gaggle of reporters there. He knows how to use the media probably as good as anybody. Maybe somewhat duplicitous at times, but he knows how to work it. So anyway, we'll spend a few minutes this morning and discuss how to get the media on your team. There I am talking to Luke Schneider-Jans at the Georgia Amateur the year he won it at the Atlanta Athletic Club. And you could tell right there I needed a haircut. But the reason I feel qualified to talk about this subject is simple, because I've been a media member for almost 50 years, and I've covered and written about events for a long time. So I know what members of the media are looking for and how you can be better situated to deal with them, and how you can help each other. So let me ask you a question. Why do you need the media? After all, to be honest, the media can be a real pain in the butt. We want things usually when it's not the most convenient. We can call you on the phone when you're busy. We ask questions, and sometimes, to be honest, we can be obnoxious and intrusive. But if you want to get the word out about yourself and your students, your club, you need the media. I knew a guy who ran tournaments, and he made it difficult for the media. It was obvious he didn't like this. He didn't want to help us out at all. It was really an obstacle for us when we come out to cover his events. And honestly, if it had been left up to him, he would have not had any of us around. He would have had players only. It's one of those kind of guys. So when you showed up to cover his events, you were kind of treated like a pest. Now, on the other hand, the team at the Georgia PGA has always been the exact opposite. I showed up at the tournament a couple of years ago in Gainesville. It may have been the first one after COVID, and plays going on. There's things going in the restaurant, and the first thing Gordo asked me when I show up was, Hey, you want something to eat? I mean, what better way to greet a guy when you, hey, how about some food? But it's really always been like that. You need a cart. Here's a cart to take out and watch. Here's your tee sheet. Here's the scores we've had. Here's a bottle of water. I wasn't a pest. I was an invited guest. And that, you think that doesn't make a difference? Yeah, it makes a huge difference. And when you welcome the media, guess what happens? You reap the reward. So you look at all the newspapers or magazines, websites, and you see who's being written about or who's being talked about. And I do the same thing. I know when I read stories about things happening in my industry, I ask the same kind of questions you do. Why is that guy getting all the attention? I'm as good as he is. I'm maybe better. I've accomplished more than that guy, but he's always in the spotlight. What's up with that? Or why is their club getting all the focus? I mean, our golf course is better. Our conditions are better. Our greens are great. Our range is top of the line. We're twice as good as they are, but they get all the attention. Why is that? Or maybe you have students that you're working with, you're teaching, but the other guys' students get written up and talked about a lot. You're asking yourself, my kids are just as competitive in junior tournaments as they are. I had a bunch of kids go play college golf. Why aren't they writing about them? Or maybe, why aren't the events at my club getting any attention? Our invitational draws twice as many good players as they do, but they're always getting written up in the newspaper or getting talked about on the local TV station. And people pay attention. When I was working for the AJC in Gwinnett County, we had 3 private courses, country clubs, and we had 1 public course. And once a week, I'd call the head pro, get a list of the club tournament results, hole-in-ones, things like that, and would report them in the newspaper. That's how I got to know Stephen Kepler so well. We talked every week for a long, long time. But it was a weekly feature that people read and that paid attention to. So one day I get a phone call from our security guard, and Grady says, "There's a guy out here in the lobby who wants to see you." So I go out and bring him in, and you can see this guy's worked up about something. So I bring him to the office, and he's got 2 file folders in his hand. They've got newspaper clippings in them. And he says, "You've written this much about this club. You've written this much about our club." I'm going, okay, what's up? And he said, "Well, you've written more about them than you have about us. And here's the proof." And he laid it out. He had all these clippings and he had measured everything. He may have had it down to the word or the letter. I don't know. It was just kind of weird. I didn't really know what to say to him. But after a few minutes, I was able to get him cooled down a little bit and convince him that I didn't have an agenda. It was maybe that his club didn't give as much information as the other clubs. It didn't change the way I did those reports, but it made me aware that people were looking, people were reading that stuff. Some of them may have needed a life, but they were paying attention. So I mean, don't forget, people read this stuff, they watch it, they listen to it, and it makes a difference to them. So you may not be as worked up as that guy was, but you may be asking the same question. Why not me? Well, the short answer is you've got to get to know them. And here I am. See, I'm talking to Stuart Sink. Now, just so you'll know, he's standing on a box. That's why he's so much taller than me. And right there, I'm looking at him eyeball the dimple. You can see. I've known Stuart for a long time, even before he won that little tournament overseas, and he's a great guy. But I got to know him better when I spent the last 5 years I was at the AJC covering the tour. I continued to build that relationship with Stuart. I went to a charity barbecue cookout he and Lisa hosted, wrote about that, along with dozens of other things that Stuart was involved in. And here's what happened. When I needed Stuart for something, he always called me back. regardless of whether it was inconvenient or not. He called me once. He called me once from his kids' hockey practice. He was in the back hall, and you could hear pucks like flying around, slapping off the boards. But he called me back. Even after he won the Claret Jug, he called me back. The Stewart knows I'm not going to waste his time, and he's made himself available even when he's very busy. The picture on that last slide was taken at the Mitsubishi tournament this past spring at Sugarloaf. Stewart was the host, and he was stretched very, very, very thin that week. But even though he was stressed out, he was always courteous and always helpful. And that's why he's universally loved by everybody in the media. Now, why he wasn't named Ryder Cup captain, we can talk about that. That's another topic for another day. But as you can see, it's all about relationships, and it's a two-way street. As a PGA professional, you have to be willing to grow your relationship with the media. It's going to take a little bit of planning. You can't just wing it. It's going to require some effort, because no one's going to be able to do it for you. It's going to take some time to organically grow, but the results can be really amazing for you and your club, as well as for the media as well. Not a one-way street. It goes both ways. Goes both ways. And because you're a PGA professional, as a PGA professional, you want yourself, your program, your club to be seen in the best possible light. So by taking a few steps to build a relationship, it's going to make it easier for both sides. You're providing the media with news, you're providing stories, you're providing access. The media is spreading your message and providing publicity to you and your club. So you see, it's a symbiotic relationship. But both sides help each other out. You help me, I'll help you. Now, with that in mind, I put down the ABCs of building media relationships and getting the media on your team. So I tried to make a little acrostic, a little ABC thing. So don't laugh at me. But the ABCs are: A, always know them, always know the media you're trying to engage. B, be proactive. Take the initiative in building the relationship. And C, connections, because they matter. These connections, these relationships, they're going to pay off for you. So let's break those down just a little bit further. The A is, always get to know them. And you start by knowing who you're trying to reach. I'd recommend you take a few minutes and write down who you're trying to connect with. Why? It's because you've got to have a target. You got to know who you're shooting for, or you're just firing shots in the air and hoping one of them finds a target. I mean, look at golf. Why do you think they have flag sticks on the green to mark the hole locations? Because if they didn't, you wouldn't know where your target is. You wouldn't know where to shoot. And I think we've all gotten to a hole sometime where the group in front didn't replace the flag for whatever reason. It's so aggravating. It's just maddening because you don't know where to aim, don't know where to shoot. So define your targets. Take a few minutes, write down the outlets, the media sources that you want to target. And I'll start off with newspapers because I'm an old newspaper guy. And I think newspapers still have a great deal of relevance in the world today. It's, a lot of times it's not the printed newspapers, maybe they're online form, but I think newspapers are still the greatest. And to be honest, if you're in a small town, if you're in a small market, this is going to be easier for you because your smaller paper is likely to be more receptive to any news that you have, especially if you can deliver it to them in a good, consistent way. A larger paper, especially these days, doesn't have the space to get it in print. And nowadays, there's not a whole lot of staff to go around at the big papers either. At the AJC, in the height of our greatness, put 54 people in the sports department. Now there's like 10. So there's just not enough people to go around. And it makes it harder to get interest in anything other than like the state amateur, state open, stuff like that. But I'd start with your newspapers. Then look at your TV stations in your area. Don't automatically think they're too big for me. TV's too big for me. Because it's really been my experience that a lot of local TV stations, even major markets, they look for things to do. They look for good stories. And unless it's a football where there's a weekend where it's a Georgia football game, or if the Braves are in the World Series, something like that, if you've got a good, unique story, the TV station is going to be interested. And I'd also recommend that you don't just limit reaching out to the on-air talent, because a lot of times the stations are going to send a cameraman out with a microphone. They're the guys that do a lot of the hard work and the heavy lifting. They'll come out and ask the questions and tape all the interviews. So don't forget about those people. I know a lot of those guys love golf. Think about your radio. It seems like everyone has at least one sports radio station in their market. We got 3 in Atlanta. I know I've got a friend who has a station in Macon that he's on. But think about those people in the sports radio talk shows. Put them on your contact list. And if you hear them talking about golf, make sure you reach out to them. And as far as magazines, the magazine I edit is Golf Georgia. And I'm always looking for interesting stories to write about. So keep me on your radar. And don't forget about For Georgia, which is the official outlet of the Georgia PGA. Look at Global Golf Post, which has great outreach. Or even the national magazines if you got something really big, a real national story that's going to warrant their attention. And I will tell you, if you got a national story, let me know first, and I'd like to know about it as well. And also put down their influencers. Now, I'm not an influencer guy. And I got to be honest, I don't pay any attention to those guys at all. But I'm old, and I'm not their target. One of the guys who worked for me and does some writing for me is exactly their demographic. He's all about the Bryan brothers, and some guy named Fat Perez, who I'd never heard of, but it's apparently a huge deal. I mean, these influencers mean nothing to me, other than an occasional page sporadic viewing. But these people get thousands and thousands, even millions of views, and they have all these connections. So if you can find a way to connect with these guys, you'll be able to reach a younger demographic that maybe you wouldn't be able to reach before. So once you identify who you want to reach, the second step is to find out how to connect with them. Now, this could take a little bit more work, will take a little bit more work, but you're trying to harvest the emails and phone numbers for these people that you want to reach out to. Most of them probably have a Twitter account or an Instagram account or even LinkedIn. Any sort of contact information you can get for them can be important. So just write those numbers and emails and all that information on your list when you're putting it together. And once you make your list, it may be 10 names, it may be 50 names. But once you get there, you're ready to go to the second step. And that's B part, which is to be proactive. You got your list. It's time to take action. It's kind of like if you remember when you were a teenager and you're interested in a girl, you had to get her phone number first before you could ask her out. That was the first step. At least it was back in the day. But then you had to take the phone and put it in your hand and call her and actually ask her out. If you're back in my time, we had a black rotary phone mounted on the wall in our kitchen. And I can't tell you how many times I get up my courage to call and have the phone in my hand, and you dial the first number and the second number, and you're shaking. And you get to this, like the sixth number, and you just hang up because you're scared. You're giving yourself up. Not quite so intimidating or quite so hard to reach out to the media. Nobody's going to bite you. They're not going to turn you down. But you got to be proactive and be prepared to introduce yourself. Now, here are some of the things that you might want to have prepared in advance. If I were you, I'd put them down in the form of a document, something you could print out, send to them in the through the post office, something you could attach and send as an email. It would be probably a good move to create a press kit you can have on site, something in a fancy little folder that cost you a dime at the Walmart, something you could have on hand so when people visit, you can give it to them. Nothing too complicated. Well, those are some of the things that I would put in there. I'd include your bio, where you're from, where you went to college, how long you've been at the club, your status as a PGA member. And again, don't forget that because you're a member of the PGA, that makes you an authority figure. People want to know what you think. Don't ever underestimate that. In your bio, you might want to mention your accomplishment player if that's appropriate. Or if you're a teacher, you might mention the accomplishments of some of your top students. You've got kids playing in college that you work with. Mention that kind of stuff. If you're putting a press kit together, I'd recommend a fact sheet about your club. How long it's been around. Who designed the golf course? Maybe what's the course record? I'd stick a scorecard in there in the press kit. Let them know if your course has any historical significance. Maybe you hosted the state mid-am one year, or maybe like Babe Ruth played an exhibition match there, 100 years ago. I just found out last week that I didn't even know that one of the local clubs I've written about for years once had a charity match between Arnold Palmer and Gary Player, and I thought that was pretty cool. Those are kind of things that you want to have in there. You want to attach a headshot, photograph. If you're doing it through the internet, if you're attaching it electronically, a JPEG, a high resolution JPEG is good. If you're doing it in a printed form, just a little 4x6 print, you can order for $1 at the Walmart. But just make sure that it's professional looking, something that can be used in any publication. Just a logo with your golf club on it, or maybe a PGA emblem. It's not the time to wear your Go Dogs Sikkim shirt or anything political. Just keep it classy. You know what I'm talking about. So if you got pictures of your club, your facility, those are helpful too. A professional exterior shot, picture of your most picturesque hole, your most difficult hole. These are all good things to have on file and to include in a press kit. And don't forget to include your contact information, your email, your phone number. And if you want to start out when you're beginning this relationship by giving them the club number and ask them to go through there, that's fine. But I'd go ahead and give them your cell number. I mean, after all, you do want them to get in touch, be able to get in touch with you, and that's a good step. Now, here's kind of a little bit of secret sauce, and it could make a big difference for you. You've got to be inviting, and what I mean is you've got to be welcoming. You've got to invite them to come visit you and visit your facility. You can't just make your list, get your materials together. You've got to invite them. And here's what I would recommend. Call them up, ask them to come out to your club, to your facility, and have lunch. I mean, everybody's got to eat, right? and you've seen a lot of the media guys, a lot of them eat a lot. But ask them if they play golf. And if they do, ask them if they'd like to come out and play. Now, back in the olden days, almost everybody in the media played golf, but not so much these days. But you'll make points for asking. Just for asking, you'll make points. And although most of the media is overworked, almost all of them who play golf, they're going to be happy to come out and play if they have an invitation. You just want to extend them the invitation. Now, if you want to take it to the next level, here's what I would do. If they play golf and if they come out and play, do whatever you can to play a few holes with them. It doesn't have to be 18 holes and take up all your day. It could be 9 holes. That'd be great. It could be just a couple of holes. But by showing that interest, you can really build the relationship even faster. Now, a month or so ago, I was doing a travel story on Georgia State Parks courses. I visited Arrowhead Point up at Lake Russell. They were going to be the focal point of my story. I contacted the golf professional, and he was more than happy to set things up. And we got up there, and he said, is it okay if I played the back 9 with you guys? Are you kidding? Was it okay? Absolutely, it was okay. It was more than okay. And so he did that. He played the back 9 with us, and he showed me things about the course that I never would have picked up on my own. He told me things that I would never have noticed. And it made a big difference in the way that story turned out. But the story was much better because of his involvement, his willingness to spend some time. And you guys know, when you spend time with somebody on a golf course, you really get to know them. You see how they tick, and you see how they react to a bad shot, and how they interact with the other guys in the foursome. So I highly recommend, if you bring somebody out, you take a few minutes to join them. Now, if you can, if you're swamped or get called away for one of those important meetings like we've all had to go to, see if your assistant can go out and do the same thing, or find a club member who might be able to join them. I think that would be a good idea. But whatever you do, make sure it's an A+ experience for your media guests when they come out. Now, when I visited Arrowhead Point, I was asking a few questions to MJ, who's the professional, and before we got started, he reaches over off the rack and he hands me a yardage book, and he says, "Here, this will help you today." Then he asked us, "You guys want to go hit some balls or warm up?" And he gave us tokens to go to the ball dispenser. He told us to go over to the cooler and grab water or drinks out of there, whatever we wanted. So if I was giving MJ a grade, man, that guy's getting an A+. He did everything the right way. Now, if you want to take it even a step further, if you want to give your visitors a towel or a hat or a shirt, media guys love to get that kind of stuff, and they wear them all the time. So you might want to consider that. One year I went to Idle Hour to talk to Ray Cutright because they were hosting the Georgia AM. And Ray's one of the best guys you can ever emulate when it comes to working with the media. And that day we had lunch. And if you've ever been to Idle Hour, they have those crackers with the butter on it. They're warm. Those are outstanding. But we had lunch, and he gives me a money clip, a wallet that has the tournament logo on it. And you know what? I've still got that wallet today. Now, the logo has been worn off for years, but I've carried that wallet with me for 14 or 15 years. And I always think about Ray giving me that thing whenever I look at it. So just keep that in mind. Speaking of wallets, don't let your guests reach for the wallet unless it's to tip the cart boy. They're your guest, and that can easily ruin the experience, which you don't want to do. Just view this as an investment. You're giving away a round of golf or a shirt or whatever, but you may be getting a story and a picture in the newspaper or a spot on the local television station. You may get a segment on the radio talk show. it's just, you're looking at a return on your investment. That's the best way I could see it. Finally, you got to keep the connection going. It's like that great girl you went out with. You want a second date, you got to follow up. You got to continue the connection and continue to build the relationship. If you did host them for a round at the club, you certainly want to follow up. You want to call and ask them, hey, I'm glad you were able to come out. I hope you had a great time. Look forward to hosting you again. Have any questions I can answer? You need more information. But be as accommodating as you can when you follow up. But please, please, please don't ask them, you think you're going to write something? Or when's this going to be in the paper? That's a step that could fracture your relationship in the early stages. It's okay to ask, hey, if you decide to write something, let me know if there's anything else I can help you with, or if you have any other questions I can answer. You got my phone number, right? That's perfectly okay. So you've gotten past the introduction, you made the connection. What can you do next? Well, that's when you can start to call them, call your sources, and pass along news items, story ideas. Don't be afraid to promote yourself. If you don't promote yourself, nobody else is likely to do it either. I mean, look at Gary Player, one of the greatest self-promoters in the history of golf. Used to aggravate my old colleague Furman Bishop in ON. He didn't like Gary because Gary promoted himself all over the place. But Gary Player is still relevant today. People still know him because he's one of the great promoters of himself. Here's an example of what you might want to consider doing. Just call and say, hey, I just want to let you know that I just won the central chapter tournament. If you'd like to know more about it, I'd be glad to talk to you about it. Or say, hey, my first assistant just became a Class A professional, and we're all excited about it. Would you like to talk to him? I set something up for you. Or, hey, that left-handed kid I give lessons to, he just qualified for the USAM. That's a great accomplishment. So don't be afraid to reach out and pitch your stories. I always tell people, if you don't tell me about it, I can't write about it. If you do tell me about it, there's a chance that I will. But one piece of advice, just think ahead. You got a calendar. You know when your member guest is going to be. You know when that invitational tournament's going to be held. Think ahead and let them know about it. There's a big invitational in Georgia, been going on for years. I've never written a word about because no one's ever reached out to me to tell me about it. And by the time I think about it, it's too late. It's already passed. Don't let that happen to you. I've told this story before, but when I was at the AJC, it was a Friday afternoon, about 4:45. I get a phone call from a guy at a well-known club. I'm not going to tell you which one. And he's inviting me to come out and cover an event they're having with Jack Nicklaus. It's going to make my ears perk up because Jack's my all-time favorite golfer and class guy. He's gold standard, right? Anytime you have a chance to be around Jack, that's a good thing. So I immediately am interested, and I reach for my calendar. I said, when's it going to be? The guy says, well, clinic's going to start at 6:00. I'm going, wait a minute. You mean today, like 6:00 in less than 2 hours? I mean, what happened? Did Jack just happen to be in the neighborhood and stop in to give a clinic? I mean, you just found out about this and you're letting me know. It's kind of like the grocery store. You're standing in the express line. You're waiting for the oblivious guy with 30 items right in front of you. And you decide to get a pack of gum. It's an impulse buy. Well, I was this guy's impulse buy. He decided at the last minute he's going to call me and let me know about this. Obviously it was too late for me to do anything about it, to get out there. It was too little too late. So I would advise you, don't let the media contact be an impulse buy to you. Think ahead. A month out is great. A reminder email a week or so before the event is a smart move too. Just don't wait to the last minute. Just get your information into the right hands in a timely manner. Make it easy for them to find you. Maybe your local paper, your radio station wants to write something about the Masters, and they want to get your comments, your thoughts on who might win. Why not? Give them a call, talk to them. Maybe it's football season and they want you to be the guest picker and pick some college games and high school games. Hey, that's great. There's your name with your club right by your picture. Outstanding opportunity. But be willing to be a source. Now, whether you're a source given the ideas or the source they can reach out to for information, be a source. And again, I can't emphasize enough that PGA membership, it's like gold. Lean on that because you are an authority. But the main thing is just continue to build a relationship. And if you do that, it's going to pay off. And here's how I know why. When I became the golf writer for the AJC, full-time golf writer, my predecessor is a guy named Glenn Shealy, great guy. He'd been on the beat for a long time. He knew everybody out there. And he had a great relationship with Tiger Woods, for crying out loud. Well, I knew that as a newcomer, I was never going to get that sort of access, the inner circle of those kind of guys. My strategy was to get to know the guys from Georgia better than anybody else. I already knew Stewart, who was the most prominent Georgian on the tour at the time. But I made it kind of my mission to get to know the other guys. So I got to know Nick Thompson and Troy Madison, and Brendan Todd and Chris Kirk. I knew them some because I covered them at the NCAAs. And I had known Roberto Castro since he was in high school. But I got to know Billy Andrade and Jason Bone and Ryuja Amada and Charles Howell. Anybody from Georgia, I got to know. They were in my Rolodex. Well, one year I was in Chicago for the semifinals of the FedEx Cup playoffs. The championships were going to be in Atlanta the very next week. So there was a lot of excitement and anticipation that week, who was going to get in the top 30 and be in the field. So I was at the 18th hole. I was waiting for Charles Howell to come off and finish. He was already in the field at East Lake. And so I just wanted to grab him for a few minutes before he headed to the airport. And I was only in one waiting outside for him at the scoring area. And as he walked to the trailer to sign his scorecard, he veers off and he comes straight toward me. Even before he goes in to sign his card, and he says, "Hey, I just want to make sure you know about the greens at East Lake. I mean, they've almost lost them. They've canceled the pro-ams for the week. They're limiting play. Might be something you might want to look into." Wow. Suddenly I had a great story. Nobody else had this. Not the AP guy, not the big magazines, not the TV stations, nobody. And I had that story. I got that story because I had developed and nurtured that relationship with Charles. So I'm just telling you, relationships matter. And it's never too early or too late to get started. And if you or your club need some help getting your story out there, I'll be glad to talk to you and see what I can do to help you. My daughter, Kate Gordo, talking about, she's a world-class photographer. We started our own group earlier this year. That's a shameless commercial plug. And we'd love to talk to you or someone from your club if you need help developing a plan, putting together a press kit, improving your website, putting social media to work, whatever you need. You can go to awtreymedia.com and take a look at our stuff. There's a lot of golf stuff on there too. And there's my cell number, my email address. And if I can help you in any way, please reach out and let me know. Thanks for listening and having me today. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Stan. Anybody have any questions for Stan? I think this is great information. And I think you kind of touched on one thing, Stan, and something I've always said is, the three letters behind your name, PGA, is so important. And our PGA professionals are minor celebrities in their local communities. And you guys and gals need to lean on that, take advantage of it, get the word out there about what's going on at your facilities. Every community that you're in has a local newspaper, and they're always looking for stories. I think Stan touched on that, and local stories specifically. So don't be afraid to reach out to those folks and get the word out there if you're not already doing that. So, well, good. Well, like I said, we'll have this posted on our website. It'll be emailed out as well, so folks can be able to check it out again. And those that weren't here, or if you were on here, you'll be able to, if you had questions, want to look back at it, it'll be out there for you to go check out and view. And Stan, thank you for coming on with your expertise in the media. Like I said, you've always been a great friend of the Georgia PGA. And we appreciate the coverage of not only our section events, but what you do locally with our PGA professionals. So thank you for that.
Real quick, Gordo, I just wanted to, us as the Georgia section, we are part of your media as well. We do our newsletters out every week. I'm always looking for content to help promote anything that our PGA members or associates are doing, whether it's their facility or them personally. So please don't forget to add the Georgia section to your media context as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Stan. If no other questions, we will sign off.
Thanks again. See you guys soon.
Thanks, Stan. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.